All right, so here is what I hope will be a fun extension project based on the Nescafe Doodle ad project. Someone on Behance posted a portfolio where they did a bunch of Doodle advertising with a cup of Nescafe. I thought it turned out really cool. You can see they've gone in here and basically just drawn, which is really easy if you have like a graphics tablet or something. I, of course, am not artistic like this person. But I am going to show you how you could do this in Illustrator and have some fun with it. This one here wouldn't be that difficult because it's basically mostly the same hand, the same couple of hands, just over and over and over again. Or you could be a little more simplistic like some of these. So let's just take a look at how we can accomplish those things. And also, because some students don't have the option to install and download fonts depending on where you are, how can we take a font that has a doodle somewhere and then use it in Illustrator? So let's take a look. I've got this first project. So here is just an Illustrator file, and I have placed a can of Starbucks Double Shot Energy. So let's say I wanted to use that, and I could go through and do my own thing with it, right? I could come in here and use, say, my paintbrush tool and, draw some things. I, of course, just did that with a white brush so you can't see it. So let's make it so it's actually visible here. Okay, so I can actually draw something, say black, right? And then grab a hold of it and make changes to it in the stroke panel. So I could hop in here and go to stroke and change the properties to make it say dashed or whatever. We can't see all the options here, but if I go to show options, we can. So if I wanted dots, for instance, then I would make a round cap with a dashed line, no dash, just gaps for the dots. And we would end up with based on whatever size you have, we would end up with some different options here. Um, it is picky, I will say, probably good that it happened on this video. Up here at the top, if it's set on 5-point round, you'll get nothing. It does have to be on basic. There we go. All right. So always good kind of when a problem happens when it's something like that that I'm aware of. This is also where, when you've got these dots or dashes, if I would have put the number in the first box, I would have dashes. But you can put arrowheads, and you've got all kinds of different arrowheads. So if you did want to have an arrow at the beginning or the end to indicate something, you could certainly do that as well. And then the scale here is how you scale down that arrowhead if you don't want it too big. But what I want to get into is how can we take other things and put them in there, especially if we don't have the option to download a font. And then also, if you don't want to do Starbucks, how would you take something else? And if you're in a class that doesn't do Photoshop, I would just suggest that you do this one simple thing. Find a picture of your product on a white background, and then just follow these very simple steps. You don't have to really know any Photoshop to do it. Come over here and click on the fourth button down, which is going to be either the quick selection or magic wand, and then just click select subject. You can also just go to select, and then subject. Give it a minute. It's going to find the subject. Since it's on a white background, it should be able to find your subject without much of a problem. Give it a minute, and there we go. Generally speaking, this should look pretty good. Now, all you're going to need to do is go to the layers panel. Mine is down at the bottom. I'm going to double click it so you can see it. Go to your layers panel down here and unlock the layer. So if you're looking on mine, I'm going to have to scoot over so you can see. There is a padlock. There's always a padlock. You're going to click it so it's not locked. And then down at the very bottom of the screen, click on the square with the circle. That's layer mask. And we're going to add a layer mask. And there you go. Now, because it's unlocked, it's hiding the rest of it. Now, all you have to do is export this out as a PNG because PNGs, unlike JPEGs, have a transparent background. So File, Export, and there's a quick export as PNG. You're just going to have to basically tell it where to put it and put .png on the end. I'll just start on the desktop with the other one. And so now I have it in there. I'm going to go into Illustrator. In the event I wanted to actually use this, I would go, let me turn on my transparency grid just so we can see um, what's there. And there's that white line I made earlier, so let's get rid of it. All right, File, Place, and then go grab it. And then you can either click and drag to draw whatever size you want, or click one time and it'll come in at full size. But there we go. Okay, and that's that simple. You don't really have to know a lot about Photoshop. If you have it on a white background and you just want to remove that white background, it's very simple to do. So you're going to pick a product, a drink, a beverage of some sort, and then do something with some doodles. Again, if you have some doodles that are in a font. So I've given you a font space URL. And so let's say that I want to use this rainbow, for instance. So you're going to click on the font, and then once you get there, if you're in font space, there's always this little button here that lets you view all the characters, and then you can see all the characters. And so if I could install a font, I could just simply install the font and then press the lowercase d and I'd get the rainbow. If you can't install a font and you're on a Windows computer, you're just going to type in snip down there in the bottom and use the snipping tool to snip just the rainbow. So I click on the scissors, I draw a box around it, and then just copy, edit, copy, pop over to Illustrator and edit, paste. And I am keeping my transparency grid on here just so you can see that this does come in on a white background. And notice it is pixely because it is a screen capture. So it is a raster image and not a vector image. We need to vectorize it. Now these are simple because they are all two colors. So we're going to go to image trace up at the top and hit the down arrow and go to black and white logo. Now, there are some fancy settings that can happen. I'm going to turn some of these other windows off so you can look at them. There are some fancy settings that can happen whenever we digitize artwork. I don't really love the job this one did. There's a button up here that's the image trace panel, and this probably wasn't open, but it'll start off like this, and you can choose threshold. So like more is going to give me a thicker outcome, and less is going to give me a thinner outcome. So, you know, if I'm already using some things and they're a certain weight, I want to kind of match that weight because you do want it to match, right? You want it to kind of look like it was all drawn at the same time. And then under advanced, you can choose paths, high or low. If you go low, you know, you're going to have fewer paths and it's not going to look as good, but you also don't want to have a million paths, right? So there's that. Corners, if you say less, it's going to have a lot more rounded parts. And if you say more, you're going to have areas that are going to be sharp. Anyway, that looks pretty good. The last thing is you really need to watch this create. The default is always to create fills, which means even this black part that looks like it's a stroke won't be a stroke. It will be a fill. So if you want it to have fills and strokes, you would have to click both. Now you can leave it on fills. I'm going to click strokes on this one just for the example. And it decides what size that stroke is going to be. Okay, now once you're done with it, you have to officially digitize it by pressing expand. And now it is actually turned into an object that is in paths. And notice, see if we look here carefully, the black part is a stroke, but I can also click on the white part. And I'm going to double click because it's grouped. So I'm going to click on the white part out here and press delete to get rid of it. And now I have the middle part. So see, I can click on this part to do the middle, or these black parts are actually strokes. And I can click on them and make changes to strokes. Oh, also in the middle here, you can choose colors. So I can choose a color if I wanted to, or my path, if you wanted to pop just a little bit of color in there. And that's pretty much the way that works. Pretty simple to digitize artwork, and now it actually looks like it belongs there. I'm going to back out of isolation mode, and then of course I can move it around and add whatever else I want to. But again, your big thing is to try to match your thickness and weight of anything that you import with anything that you draw. So if you do choose to say take a paintbrush and do your own drawing on here, you do want to make sure that it matches as much as possible. But you could certainly draw your own little things. I would always suggest that you group them. Oops, I'll move this over here. That you group them, you know, just so they'll be easier to deal with once you draw them. But yeah, this should be a project that you can have fun with a product that you like. So pick something that you like, pop it on there with a transparent background, and create something cool.